Welcome to the Stories with Traction podcast. I'm your host, Matt Zahn. Thank you for joining us as we uncover how stories are one of the most important aspects of your business. We'll talk about struggles, victories, and how you can utilize strategic storytelling to inspire those around you to action. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Stories with Traction podcast. I'm your host, and I am joined today by Rachel Simon, who is the founder and operator of Connect the Dots Digital. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I had to have you on because a few weeks ago, we did a Power Hour session together. So for any listener that's not aware of Power Hour, it is a weekly mastermind session that I run with Claire Davis, Aaron Geiger, and Dan Mott. And we've been doing this since January of 2021. And we've had on some really good speakers, fantastic trainers, and we primarily focus on business and career growth. And we had Rachel on a few weeks ago, and she just shared so much incredible information that I think is going to be very helpful to listeners of Stories with Traction. So I had to have you on because I think you can offer a tremendous value to my audience. So thanks again. I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to diving in. So before we get more into your origin story, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do through Connect the Dots Digital?
Sure. So I like to keep it simple and just sort of think about it as I help people look good on LinkedIn. So I look at it like a pyramid. So the base of that pyramid is a profile. So everything is built on the foundation of a great profile that lets people know who you are, what you do, why you do it, and who you do it for. So getting that profile really well optimized with great visuals tells that story and draws people in so they want to learn more about you. And then from there, kind of building upwards to helping people understand who are they connected to. So a lot of us have been on LinkedIn for a number of years, over a decade, more. And, you collect contacts and connections over time, but it's really hard to keep up with who's in your network. And so being able to take a deep dive into who's in there, because you very often will find hidden gems, people who have maybe you connected with them a decade ago, but now they're in a position where they can be supportive for your, whatever your specific goals are. And then kind of upwards from there, once you know who your audience is, crafting content that's going to resonate and engage with them. So content is really where the fun of LinkedIn lies. Putting out content that showcases your expertise, but also pulls your personality in so people get to understand who you are and, see a little bit behind the curtain and connect with you as a person. And then the pinnacle of that pyramid is going to be whatever your specific goal is. So that is different for everybody. Sometimes it is visibility. Sometimes it's brand awareness, personal branding, and obviously business development is a goal that many of us have. So wanting to find new clients, partners, resources, and whatnot. So that's really the way I approach it. Very organic and authentic, because that's how we connect with people in the real world. And we want to take those practices onto LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the pyramid and dive in, starting with the profile aspect. So I'm sure there are people that are listening that they still view LinkedIn as a glorified resume. So they may be thinking, okay, why would I be posting content? Why should I really care about LinkedIn? So I would challenge everyone listening to focus more on LinkedIn, because more than likely you're spending ad dollars through social media platforms like Facebook, thinking that you're getting traction on there. And you may be, and Rachel, you may be able to speak to this. If you invest a lot on Facebook through your business page, you will get traction. But there's a huge difference between LinkedIn and Facebook right now, because LinkedIn is a content deficient platform. They have tons of users, but not enough content. So they're actually boosting posts organically. And so for individuals that are looking to cut ad dollars, but still get maximum value, LinkedIn is the place to be. So when Rachel's talking about optimizing your profile, That's absolutely huge, because people that go to your profile after seeing a piece of content, it is a gigantic ad to do what you want them to do. And Rachel said, like, everyone has our own specific goals. I know what my goal is on LinkedIn. Rachel absolutely knows what her goal is on LinkedIn. If you identify what your goal is, that could become part of your strategy. That's why it's so important to optimize your profile. But I would challenge everyone listening to really focus on optimizing that profile, because LinkedIn can get you more than you can even fathom right now. It's so underutilized. And whenever I say that to people, they think I'm joking. LinkedIn literally changed the game for me in business. I started heavily focusing on LinkedIn in 2019. And I will tell you, like, it's shocking how well it's done. And a big part of that is because the organic reach is better than any other social media platform out there, with the exception of TikTok. But a lot of people, especially the audiences that I speak to, their buyers, their clients aren't on TikTok yet. So I just want to throw that out there, Rachel. So are you able to speak to the organic reach that people can get from LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that there's like 700 million plus users, and of that, like 3 million are content creators. And LinkedIn has shared that stat that I think it's like 3 million post content monthly or something like that. So they're not even necessarily posting once a week, or there's people that are posting, multiple times a week. So there's so much opportunity to kind of find your audience. And there's a couple misconceptions that I'll sort of address, and you touched on some of them. Number one is LinkedIn used to be your online resume. It did. Back when it rolled out, it was a lot for job seekers. People kind of focused on the employment aspects of it. That still exists. That's still a key component of LinkedIn. However, this was, I think, going in the trajectory, but COVID really expedited the process, that we needed a place to go, right? Networking events were canceled. We couldn't go to conferences. We couldn't go to trade shows. We weren't in front of people. And so lots of people turned to LinkedIn to take the place of these in-person networking opportunities. And it's really changed the game when it comes to the platform. So it is not a resume. It is a 24/7 networking event. And so if you think about it in those terms, you would never walk into a networking event with a bag over your head and nobody knows who you are. So an incomplete profile is basically the equivalent of doing something like that. If people don't have, recent profile photos, they're not showcasing the value that they offer, they're talking about themselves in the third person, it's a missed opportunity to kind of engage with somebody. So shift the mindset from it's a resume to it is a networking event. And that's how Matt and I met. I mean, so, you can build real deep relationships with people through the platform that will be positively affecting you both personally and professionally.
I appreciate you mentioning that. So 2 quick points, just one to stress the importance, and then also to touch on the networking event analogy. So Microsoft, who owns LinkedIn, has publicly verbally said LinkedIn is the best investment they've made as a company. So I want you to think about that. Microsoft has said the best buy they've ever done as a company has been LinkedIn. So if that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what else does.
Yeah, really.
The last Super Bowl, LinkedIn ran an ad right before the Super Bowl. I remember I'm about ready to watch the Super Bowl, and I'm like, they're making money for me, because the more people see this and the more people hop on the platform, the higher likelihood people are going to see different things I'm posting. So they are actively aggressively expanding the amount of people that are on that platform. So it is not a social media channel that is going anywhere anytime soon. It has a huge track record, it has a history, and they are heavily investing. Back to your point about the networking, I think this is really, really important. Before COVID, because you had mentioned, before COVID networking events, and then COVID happened, and obviously we know what happened. before COVID, I was doing a lot of networking events, and I had a strategy with what I was doing. And I was doing 2 to 3 networking events every single week. And
Oof.
people are stunned when I say that, but it was working for me. Like I felt like I had a great strategy. And I have 3 little kids at home. It was very difficult because it's hours per networking event. And then trying to figure out how to keep in touch with these people. It was a lot of time. LinkedIn supercharged that. When I say supercharged, think of the fraction of time that I'm spending now on LinkedIn versus going to 3 networking events a week. So let's just say it's 6 hours for the 3 networking events. I'm getting way, 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 way more of a value utilizing LinkedIn from a dollar perspective, converting viewers to clients than I ever would with networking events. So I just want to echo and stress your point. And then also it's important to realize, like, when you go to networking events, you're not chucking your business card in people's faces, right? They kind of shy away from that a little bit. You are easing in by building that business relationship, asking about them, finding out, where they went to school, what they're doing. Maybe you're talking about family, maybe you're talking about sports. Now, there's a way to do it on LinkedIn where you're sharing different things and utilizing business principles, business values through that story. But I see a lot of people I feel like they're doing it wrong because they're really posting these stuffy, archaic business posts. You had mentioned white papers before. That's not going to get you the traction that you need to get people back to your profile. So can you stress the different elements of content for people listening? Because I think a lot of people have different images when they think content. So when you say content, Rachel, what are you referring to regarding content?
So, yeah, content is really like the meat of LinkedIn once you get that profile done. And so the way that I like to approach content is thinking about what is it that you know really well and you like to talk about and things that you're passionate about. So sometimes people get in their heads and they're like, well, everyone knows whatever this specific thing is. Like everyone knows, that you need to have a good profile on LinkedIn. That's just a duh. But the truth is that a lot of people don't know the basics that come naturally to you. And so thinking about what it is that you know really well and really get, like, I suggest to my clients, get a notebook and literally write it out be granular with it. Everything, like break it down into all the little pieces that go into what you do, because each one of those components can be its own content, bucket. So like for me, I went through a LinkedIn profile and literally bulleted out every single section of that profile. And each piece of that can be a LinkedIn post times 10. So thinking about that, if you, your organization or your business creates long form content, like a white paper, like a case study, like a blog, like a podcast, and I'm actually just putting this together for an email that's going out tomorrow, is repurpose that content. So it takes a lot to write a blog post. So if you just write it and then post it one time and go, okay, next, that's a missed opportunity. You can take that blog and repurpose it in multiple ways, break it up into smaller posts, create a document, carousel post, make a video talking about the topic. So utilizing content in that way. So that's sort of like on the one side, what do you have to work with? On the other side, as far as what you want to talk about, again, like your point to a networking event, you don't walk up and say, hi, I'm Rachel. This is my business. This is what I do, blah, 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 blah. You go, God, this is a really cool restaurant. I've never been here before. Have you been here? Isn't that exciting? And again, I live in Atlanta, so we're all talking about the World Series because that was super fun for my city. Talking about sports, where you went to school, what your kids do, what are you going on vacation, all these things. It's a way to kind of start to build rapport with people. So you can tie that into your LinkedIn content as well. So I like to share this example. I have 2 kids. My son plays baseball. My daughter is a swimmer. About a year ago, I wrote a post. Well, it was actually oh my God, almost 2 years ago. It was before COVID. So it was like in February of 2020, she went to a swim meet and I wrote a post about everything I learned from watching her swim over the years. Resilience, focus, determination, mindset, all these things. And those are principles that relate to anything, right? The way you approach your work. So I shared that post. And then a couple of months later, I connected to somebody. And this person went through some of my content and was like, I saw your post about your daughter swimming. All my kids swam. My wife and I are making a documentary about swim teams in our community. So it was like an instant point of connection. So when you can pull back the curtain and sort of share, again, like you said, business principles, but from your personal perspective, relate it to something in your life, it is so impactful. Like people will remember you and will kind of associate you with those things. So I love doing things like that. Super important.
Yeah. So you shared a lot to unpack, and I think it's just unbelievably valuable what you had said. So there are people that would say to you, how dare you post something on LinkedIn about your daughter swimming? This isn't Facebook. However, I remember reading that post. You said that post was, I don't know how long ago it was. I remember seeing that post, and we weren't connected 2 years ago. I think somewhere, you may have reshared that, or maybe I saw it from someone else, but I saw that post. That post had a ton. It was gorged with business principles. You talked about perseverance, all these different things. So you're making the connection. So why that's so important is because one of the best things to do when you're starting a business relationship is to build trust. So you go, and I do this myself too. I do post things about my kids, but I'm always using it as a business opportunity, like a business principle. Like my son does all kinds of stuff regarding, perseverance and overcoming and all this stuff. And I'm always tying it back to that business principle. And I do it because now I become not just some person on LinkedIn, but now people recognize me. Okay, I'm a father. Okay, I'm a husband. Okay, I'm a family person. So I'm starting to position myself as here's who I am, to start building that trust. So I would challenge people to view LinkedIn differently. It is a networking event on steroids. Use it to your advantage to build business. There's a gentleman I have been following now for quite some time. He's constantly posting food, pictures of food. Now, a lot of people would say, why in the world would you post food on LinkedIn? This isn't Facebook. He is the founder and CEO of a very large restaurant chain. I think they're radically expanding. He started franchising it a few years ago. My wife and I believe we went to the second or third one that was opened when we first met. Now I believe he has 30 plus around the country.
Wow.
So they're radically expanding. He has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of staff members. So think of like extremely busy person. He's running now this corporation, but he still finds time to post different things, food, beer, things like that. And he's utilizing it from a business perspective. So he's not just posting a picture of food saying, look at what I ate today. It's, hey, look at what we just rolled out on the menu. My chef, Mike so-and-so, did this awesome thing. I have person redoing the menu, Sally, and look at what he's constantly edifying his staff. He's constantly showing what they're doing, the creativity, the innovation behind what they're doing. So he's always using it as a business opportunity to market what he's doing, and he does it exceptionally well. So I wanted to hit on that for a few different points. One, I want people to recognize that LinkedIn has radically changed, just to stress the point Rachel had mentioned, that it's not a glorified resume anymore. It's something that you can have way more creativity with. And also for busy people like this gentleman running 30 different restaurants, hundreds of staff, still aggressively expanding across the country, he's setting time aside to still post because he realizes this is a golden goose. Like people pay for exposure. They pay for attention. I've not spent a single ad dollar on LinkedIn from a boost perspective, from like boosting a post. I don't spend ad dollars to boost posts on LinkedIn. I think you could do it through a business page.
Correct.
I don't do that, right? Because I don't need to, because the organic reach is so good. So I just wanted to speak to that because I know a lot of people have those ideas regarding LinkedIn. So thank you for bringing that up, Rachel.
Yeah. And to your point, I do want to address one thing, which is and it's a question that comes up often, which is like, well, company page or personal profile? Like, what do you do? What makes the most sense? So the answer really is both. You have to have a company page because that's where the branding for your profile comes through. So if you don't have a company page, you're going to have, and I like to call them the sad gray boxes on your profile in your experience section, because LinkedIn you can't like upload a logo into your current position or your past roles. So having that company page is super important. Building a company page can be very effective. There are company pages where they're getting a good amount of traction, engagement, things of that nature. For smaller organizations, for solopreneurs, just having it and posting content maybe like once a week, great. Take what you're posting on your personal page and see what you can kind of pop onto your company page so that it's there in case people come across your company page. So a lot of times what happens is you'll come across somebody, you dig into their profile, you see their branding, you're kind of curious, you pop onto their company page and you make your way to the website. And that's kind of a good strategy. You want to get people to eventually get to your website. The real relationship building, though, happens on the personal profile. And that's where those engagement strategies come forward, where when you're posting content and people respond and post a comment, you want to respond to those comments. You want to go out and actively comment on other people's content. And that's how you build relationships. And I feel like the most important and powerful relationships I've built were by finding people who I really enjoyed what they were talking about and starting to engage with them. And eventually then it's an appropriate time to either send a connection request or they will send you one. But those engagement strategies are super powerful.
Well said. Very well said. That's awesome. My hope is people follow your advice after listening to this because they don't realize how good it could be for them. So Rachel, let's have a little bit of fun. So I want to completely make something up on the spot. We'll kind of work through it just because I feel like even though it's made up, this is happening frequently. So let's say that there is a business leader. We'll call her Lisa. And Lisa is the CEO of a company of 75 people. So Lisa is very busy. Lisa works long hours. And they just recently had to cut their advertising budget due to different things. They're doing all different things in other categories. They can't spend as much on advertising. So now Lisa needs to figure out what is she going to do to continue to get their message out there because they can't rely on as much paid dollars anymore. So Lisa comes across something you post and a big aha moment goes off and she says, wow, I could utilize LinkedIn to do exactly what you're doing, Rachel. There are a lot of people out there like Lisa listening. What would you tell Lisa to do to start regarding LinkedIn? Where's the best way? Like, how is the best way she can dive in and start utilizing LinkedIn for her or maybe for her and for her team?
Yeah, that's okay. So Lisa can do a couple of things. So number one, and it's sort of that individual and then the team piece. So as far as the team, I'm going to speak to the team first.
Okay.
Really, the most important thing that organizations can do, and if there is a marketing department, that's where they can be tapped to help with this, is that I've seen it so many times. There is no, they're out of alignment. Companies and teams tend to be out of alignment when it comes to messaging on LinkedIn. So you're not going to have 75 active members of a company on LinkedIn. That's unrealistic. But you don't want 75 different company descriptions on LinkedIn. You don't want people to, kind of making up the way they talk about their company in the experience section. So having a boilerplate description of the company and ensuring that there's consistent branding, that they're all connected to the company page and they're using the same messaging is like, you'll be 100 steps ahead of the game just by doing that one thing. And that isn't that hard. Now I know you can't, enforce it on people's personal profiles and everybody, there's different levels of activity, but particularly for your customer facing teams, if you can get that alignment and get the messaging consistent, that's a huge thing. then let's say Lisa, or there's some other, kind of person identified who is kind of getting really into LinkedIn, like, this is kind of cool. Then kind of taking that whole strategy of, like I talked about at the beginning, the pyramid, building upwards from a really well optimized profile, understanding the network. So not only are those the hidden gems, but are there missing gaps? Are there targets that are not there? So if there's specific people that organization wants to be in front of, but they're not there, then there needs to be a strategy to start to connect with those people. And then again, utilizing, how can we take all the content that I'm sure this organization, Lisa's company, has, and use it in a way that is meaningful to her? So pushing out what the company does while getting people to see who she is and that she's a valuable contact and an authority in whatever her specific organization is. So whether that is, again, in the for-profit world, in the nonprofit world, using those, storytelling components that you talk about and you teach about, and parlaying those onto LinkedIn.
Great. I appreciate you mentioning that. So, all right. So a lot of companies that you see are out of alignment when it comes to LinkedIn. So just getting a description of the company, getting a little bit of unity across the board with what people are posting in the about section. I think that's spot on. And it's amazing to me. I see, and this is not like a once or twice time. I see this regularly, that there are medium to even large size businesses, they don't have group pages on LinkedIn. So when you go to the about section, there's no picture there. It's just blank space. And it's shocking to me. I'm like, these companies spend so much money on advertising and they can't do a free group company page on it's mind-boggling. All right. So let's say that. So all right. So Lisa's doing everything that you're saying. She sends out an email saying, hey, here's a description you can include in your LinkedIn profile. She starts making a game out of this on, trying to get her team more active and engaged on LinkedIn, knowing now that there's value. After 2 to 3 weeks, one of her VPs, Jack, comes to Lisa and he's ticked because now he told his sales team to do X, Y, and Z on LinkedIn and they're not seeing results. So he goes to Lisa and he says, you know what? I don't think LinkedIn's working. We shouldn't have spent our time there. What would you tell Lisa to tell Jack?
Well, Jack, that diet you started 3 weeks ago, how's that going? I mean, you don't expect like miracles. I mean, nothing is going to happen in 3 weeks. This is a long game. LinkedIn is a long game. I've done several posts about that topic where it takes, consistency and, focus and engagement and all of these things. And most importantly, patience. So, you cannot expect miracles to happen in 3 weeks. I've been at this for almost a year, posting consistently and engaging consistently. And it takes, I would say, you have to give it. And this is when I'm working with my clients, I try to get them to commit to at least a 3-month initial engagement, because it really takes 3 months to lay the foundation, but it's going to be more like 6 to 12 really to build. And that's most things in life. Again, you don't go out to run a marathon on day one. You go and run around the block and then you're like gasping for air probably. So, Jack, I know it's tough in sales. It's tough, but you gotta be patient, Jack. It'll come.
There you go. Now, and so it's as funny as it may sound, there are a lot of Jacks out there. There are a lot of people out there that they see a little bit on the horizon regarding LinkedIn. So they start prompting their teams, hey, maybe we should start utilizing this more. And they're not seeing instant results. So they shut it down. We did not coordinate before this conversation regarding timing, but while you were saying that, I thought about the 6 months as well. Like literally, as you were saying that, that's what I thought in my head, because when I started heavily being active on LinkedIn, I believe it was September of 2019 is when I really started getting active. It took me 6 months before I hit my stride, like before I really started to see results come in. it was about 6 months. I will tell people, you will know when you're starting to hit your stride on LinkedIn because you will start getting bombarded with requests. Now, if you do this right and you do what Rachel said in the beginning about having profile optimization, having your profile optimized to basically tell people what to do once they get on your profile, it's a good being bombarded. Like, you don't want people to just message you to sell you stuff. That's the last thing I think anyone wants, is more sales messages. But if you are positioning yourself for people to do X, Y, and Z, you will know right out of the gate that you really got the LinkedIn thing, not necessarily figured out, but it's starting to work for you because business will start coming in. Because 6 months after I started posting on LinkedIn every single day, I started getting request after request after request, and it was incredible. And now I'm a huge believer in LinkedIn. I think, well, I don't think, I know, since September of 2019, I've not missed a single day regarding posting on LinkedIn. I post it
Wow.
every single day, Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter, because there's still an audience on weekends. Now, that's me personally. I'm not saying everyone needs to do that. You need to really figure out what lifestyle for yourself. But it's a huge thing to go back to habits. You had mentioned your daughter swimming. You had mentioned, Jack, like, hey, 3 weeks into a diet or a workout, it's not necessarily going to show you results. Diet, working out, it's a habit, right? We create a habit. So once you create the habit on posting content on LinkedIn, it starts transcending every element of your business. Here's what I mean by that. Once I started posting on LinkedIn, I started writing more articles than I ever had before, because then I started getting better at writing. Then I started getting better at copywriting. So now I'm better at getting hooking people, like hooks, right? So then my talks, because I do a lot of workshops, they got better because I learned different things regarding hooking people from a speaking perspective. So like all these different elements of sales and marketing, and you had mentioned emails, I think, in the past when you and I had spoken about emails. Like, emails will get significantly better because once you start learning how to write short form copywriting on LinkedIn, the emails are going to be crisper. They're going to be more value packed. You're going to be able to help more people. So I think it's really important, when Rachel had said, it could take 3 months to set the groundwork and 6 months to really start to get in the game with LinkedIn. I think that's spot on. So thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that.
Yeah. People get, that patience is so important. So, just to your point, I mean, you're so right. As far as, I want to just say two things. One is, people can get very overwhelmed with the idea that they have to post every day. What I like to share, some people can post every day. That's amazing that you posted every single day. I started that at the beginning of the year. I couldn't maintain it. I post probably 4 or 5 times a week, and that's been a good cadence for me. If you can post once a week and you can consistently post once a week, fantastic. That is great. It's the consistency that is more important than the quantity. So what you don't want to do is, for 3 weeks, you kill yourself to post every single day and you totally burn out, and then don't post again for 2 months. That is not going to support your long-term strategy. So start small, and maybe once a week turns into twice a week, and twice a week turns into 3 times a week. The other thing you can do, if you've been posting for a long time and your content is evergreen, go back to your old posts, zhuzh them up a little bit and pop them back out. No one is going to remember that. You can probably go back 6 months. People are not going to remember that, hey, didn't you post that already? And then one of the things I did this year, I really wanted to really up my email game, was I went back through 2 years of LinkedIn posts and I pulled out all the posts that I felt like could be standalone emails. And that's the content I used to put my emails together. And that's been really efficient. It's that people who follow me on LinkedIn know what they're getting. It's the same kind of tone, the same, vibe in my content. And it's I don't have to sit and go like, ooh, what should I put in my email this week? It's been a really efficient way to kind of get that content strategy moving forward, because it's really hard to do multiple things. So there's just a lot, especially, if, again, you're being asked to do so many different things to market yourself. even when you work for a company, be efficient with it. Makes it a lot easier to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Be efficient with it. What you said is absolute gold. Repurposing. All right, so I'm going to let everyone in on a secret. So, part of me does not want to say this because I don't tend to share this with people, but I know there's a lot of people out there that are super busy and they're probably thinking, I can't believe that I need to do this, add this to my life, yada yada yada. So here's a little secret. I have a content bank that is ready to go for 2022. So my content bank has over 1,000 posts in it right now. So I have over 1,000 posts ready to go for 2022. So what I do is I utilize Dropbox for my video content bank. I use text to pick for my pictures, and I use a Google Doc for all of my written word posts. And that's what works for me. So I have a 3 different tier. Why that's really important is because if I'm going to spend 10 minutes to write a post, I'm going to use that post multiple times. That post is going to be used. It's going to go in my content bank. You had mentioned evergreen content. I appreciate you mentioning that. Basically, for people that aren't aware of that kind of content, it's content that you can use over and over and over and over again. There are posts that I've used 5 times, and hey, if it's working for me, I took time to write it. It's offering value to people. I'm going to continue to use it. So people may be thinking, how in the world would you have 1,000 pieces of content ready to go for next year? Once you learn how to build this out, you continue to add and add and add and add and add. So now, yes, I still do post things that come to my mind. I'm still posting content in real time. I'm still posting content when I think of something. I'm doing that, but I also have a massive content bank because if I'm really busy, I'm doing a lot more traveling now. So tomorrow I'm going to be traveling and I'll be gone most of the month. I'm going to be traveling. So I'm not going to have the time to really think about creative posts. Boom, boom, boom. I pull from this whole content bank. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't really tend to share that with a lot of people. But it's something that I think is really important. You don't need to recreate the wheel once you find content that works for you.
Absolutely. And, Dan Mott, our mutual friend, he's posted about how, you can download really all your information from LinkedIn. There's a whole back end data download. And one of the files, if you get the whole thing, which takes about a day to process, is you can get all of the content you've ever posted. And he's talked about how he uses that. You pop it into a spreadsheet and just search for keywords. I mean, genius. So smart.
Yeah, no, there's so much that you can do with it.
Right.
But back to your point about setting realistic expectations, post once a week. Once you get that down, go to twice a week. And then once you start to see it work for you, you can start doing that. What Rachel just mentioned that Dan Mott does, you could start downloading different things and searching out keywords. You could start focusing on different things. You don't need to do that right out of the gate. You don't need to worry about hashtags and about, how to structure a post. Just start somewhere. So, all right, let's talk about starting. So let's just pick one thing. If you were to say to people just to focus on one thing from this conversation, where's the one thing that you would recommend they start, or where they would start?
Well, I'm going to make the assumption that the one, before you do anything, getting that profile in order is key. Okay, what you don't want, and I like to just use it as the analogy of an incomplete profile would be like the equivalent of sending someone to your website and they get a 404 error message. So, if your profile is not, especially if you don't have the basics, you don't have to have it soup to nuts, but have your pictures, that's your banner photo, which goes behind your profile photo, a good profile photo, a headline that really is clear about who you are, what you do, especially your industry. If you have a headline that's like CEO of, company XYZ, where it's really unclear what that company does, then I have to really spend the time to dig into your profile to understand what industry you're in. So getting that profile, is a given. But I think from there, honestly, it's just exploring the platform. So maybe you're not ready to start posting, but why not start dropping a couple comments? Find some content that resonates with you and just get your feet wet, dip your toe in by dropping a comment, and not like a great post or a thank you, but I never thought about, utilizing LinkedIn like this. Or let's say you're in the, in the nonprofit world, and there's a for-profit company that is working. We've talked a lot about this offline about like social responsibility. Drop a comment about your organization, educate them about who you are and what you do. Just so start to get your feet wet and then build that confidence so that you're ready to start sharing your own fresh content.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Excellent advice, because especially with LinkedIn being as organic as a reach as it is, you could end up posting something and several hundred people see it. They go to your profile, and how terrible would it be that you don't have a profile that's filled out? Because what are they supposed to do with that information? How are they supposed to find you? So I think that's really good advice. So Rachel, thank you so much for your time. I will just tell everyone, I love seeing Rachel's content. When it comes up in my feed, it's extremely creative. I feel like she really knows how to speak to her audience. I've learned a ton. So let's keep it going. How can people continue to learn from you, Rachel? Where's the best place that they can find you, find out more about what you do, that they could learn more about your strategies?
Sure. So obviously on LinkedIn is the best place. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, Rachel Simon, I also have a personal hashtag, Rachel Recommends. So if you search for that hashtag, you can see all of my content. That's like content strategy next level, not for the new people. I really try to be very deliberate with the kind of content I share. Thank you very much for your kind words about it. And really try to have fun. And the fun is really important, because if it's not fun, why are we doing this? Like, it shouldn't be a drag. It should be really an enjoyable time to spend on the platform. If you want tips straight into your inbox, I send an email every other week, and that you can find at connectthedots.digital/subscribe. And they are very high quality. Again, like I said, a lot of content I've shared on LinkedIn, I'm repurposing it for these emails. The one that's going out tomorrow is all about repurposing content. So,
oh, wow. Okay, perfect. That's great. I'll definitely include that in the show notes so people can just click and get to what you're saying. So that is awesome. And it's cool that it's so relevant with, the repurposing content piece. So I'm interested to see what that's about as well. So Rachel, thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it. You offered an unbelievable amount of value to people listening. I literally have 3 pages of notes just based on our conversation alone. And there's some things that I need to do to go revamp some of my content based on what you had said. So thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was great. And let's keep talking. I, can talk about this stuff all day long. So.
Sounds good. Thanks again. Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. If you have a story that you would like to share, feel free to drop an email to matt@mattzahn.com with the subject line Stories with Traction. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share tons of resources on how you can be a better storyteller. Remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.